Hello everyone and welcome to the showdown between the Dinos led by Krokar and the High Elves who are going to be led by Tyrion. So let's jump right into this game, guys, and take a look at some of these builds. So over here in Vanguard, I do have two groups of the Chameleon Skinks, and I definitely think they're a must-bring in pretty much every matchup. They apply poison and melee as well as their ranged attacks, and against the High Elves, they have this ability that is very good called Chameleon, which gives them a 40% resistance against missile attacks. So one of the more traditional ways to deal with skirmishers is obviously to use your own archers and kind of more traditional archer-type units to fend them off, but they're going to be very durable against that. On top of that, they do apply poison, like I mentioned before, which is very good for kind of slowing the roll of High Elf Phoenixes. So when I play the High Elves, I really like to use Phoenixes to kind of snipe out these Bastillodons, or the Laser Lizards as we've called them, and go after the Revivification Crystal in the back. And the Skinks are a very, kind of good countermeasure against that, because it slows them down and also does pretty good damage. So two groups of these bad boys. And I'm trying something a little bit different with my infantry corps. You can see I have an entire front line of the Skink cohorts, which obviously aren't going to be holding for terribly long, but they're basically just providing some cover for these Kroxigors. So you guys have been asking to see some Kroxigors on the channel, and the one matchup where I feel they really shine is against the High Elves. They do have 100 armor, and against the Dark Elves, that's not really going to help them, because Dark Shards are just going to cut them to pieces. But against the High Elf missile units, don't have the best AP values, so these guys are going to be a little bit more durable against the High Elves. Granted, you definitely want to avoid the Phoenix Guard, because Phoenix Guard will tear these guys to pieces. But on that same note, the Kroxigors will also beat the brakes off the White Lines and the Swordmasters of Hoeth, and definitely do a pretty good job in that matchup. So I do have two of those guys in the back. I have the Healing Crystal to kind of provide some sustainability. I got Krokar with the Hand of the Gods, so hopefully we'll get some no-scope headshots this game. We'll do our best. And two Laser Dinos. So it's definitely a bit more of a skirmisher build. I really like the Laser Dinos against the High Elves, because High Elves tend to bring some very expensive infantry, like the Phoenix Guard and the White Lions. And, well, White Lions aren't terribly expensive, but they're still, relatively pricey at 800. So the Phoenix Guard, White Lions, and Swordmasters of Hoeth, all of whom are extremely powerful. However, they're also very vulnerable to the artillery fire from the Laser Dinos. I do have one group of the Spear Riders to kind of protect the Skinks, and you definitely need to bring one of these guys when you're going to do like a skirmisher build like this, because Dragon Princes and these other elite cav can definitely do some pretty good work against the Skinks if they can catch them. So if they're about to catch them, you can kind of save them with the Cold One Spear Riders, and of course if you have Krokar riding with these guys, they can honestly take down the Dragon Princes relatively easily, or at least hold them off. So I do have those, and Lore of Heavens. So Heavens is good. Comet of Cassandora does a ton of damage against Phoenix Guard, and the Wind Blast does very good damage against the lightly armored archers. So that's pretty much it for my build. For my opponent, he does have some Dragon Princes over here. I think, yeah, he has one group of Dragon Princes and one group of Silver Helms, which are going to be a little bit scary for my poor Skinks. And, Kroxigors can actually put up a decent fight against these type of units, because they do have very good AP value, so hopefully that'll help out. He's got Tyrion with Sunfang, so he's probably going to be roasting some of my Skinks, so I got to watch out for that. He's got Phoenix Guard defending the high ground right here. He's got some Lothern Sea Guard up here, so he's definitely taking advantage of the terrain, taking the corner camping to the next level using this nice little ridge here. But man, look at that arc of fire. I mean, you definitely can't blame him. I mean, how tempting is this? You have artillery pieces, you have like archers, you have like a horde of massive dinosaurs coming your way. I mean, this is definitely has the makings of a pretty exciting game. So he's got two Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers right here, probably teeing off, and it looks like they're using the spread kind of at AoE fire, but honestly he probably wants to switch these and just kind of getting them on my dinos over here and use them on the single shot armor piercing anti-large mode. Well, they all have AP, but it gives it anti-large. So he does have the Lore Master of Hoeth with Spirit Leech, Wyson's Wild Form, as well as Earthblood, and it looks like, yeah, he pretty much brought all of the abilities on that guy. So he just wants a little bit of diversity. He's got some Spearmen, more Lothern Sea Guard, and Swordmasters of Hoeth. So yeah, guys, let's get the show on the road and see how it goes. So right now, my Skinks, what I wanted to do is get my Skinks. I'm like, all right, he has his cav over here, so I'm going to just bring the full force of the dinos. So Krokar's coming. I'm taking some fire on my Cold One Spear Riders, but let's see if I can catch these guys and use the Chameleon Skinks to sneak up and around and just poison them and slow them, so then I can catch them and just pretty much annihilate them. I am taking some artillery fire, but you can see it's extremely inaccurate right here. So right now I was going to also fly my Skink Priest over here and maybe use some of the Wind Blast right here, but I am taking some skirmisher fire from those archers. And thankfully I do have the Chameleon, so you can see I'm not taking too much damage from that, and I'm just kind of poking Tyrion, just prodding at my opponent a little bit. You can see my Laser Dinos are trying their best to shoot at these Phoenix Guard, but not making the best contact right now. They're just standing shoulder to shoulder, just laughing it up, shooting at these guys. But I think I did get a hit right there, kind of prompting my opponent to fall back and get behind this hill so I don't have an angle of fire. So right now I'm just really just trying to force the issue over here on these Silver Helms. And the Silver Helms have 78 speed compared to the 66 of the Cold One Spear Riders. Krokar has a better chance of catching them, but I was a little bit kind of out of position here. I should have sent the Skinks across the river and just cut them off and intercept them in melee. And even if I take some damage, I would have, then be able to catch them from the back here and do some pretty substantial damage. So in the main fight, you can see the Laser Dinos are now teeing off on these Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, and it looks like they're actually able to destroy one and do some pretty good damage. So very happy with how these guys are performing, but my opponent has switched to the single fire mode right here on the Bastillodon and starting to do some good work. And he also does send Tyrion in against these guys, and he's going to obstruct me from firing at the very least. So very well played there. So my Skinks have come over here and done their job. So I got the Silver Helms kind of shot here, but the Silver Helms, it looks like they got a little bit mucked up in their charge. Maybe it was because of the poison. but they charge the skinks in the river. But aha, I have aquatics and I'm in the water. I don't know what that really does, but it sounds cool. So Krok'Ar's going to get in here and just start punishing these silver helms with his anti-large armor piercing, and now they're being poisoned by the skinks. You can see their speed is 60, so that means my Spear 1 riders can catch them, and this is a very, very bad situation for my opponent. My laser dinos are now back online, but man, I'm taking a ton of damage right here. So I actually used the healing crystal as well as cold-blooded, because there's no real downside to using cold-blooded when you're taking missile fire, because it lowers melee defense and melee attack, and neither of those stats are really pertinent at all to the situation. So the little skinks here are throwing some of their darts at these dragon princes, which I love. And you can see the silver helms are just being dragged down into the river by all of these aquatic beasts. My little skinks doing a pretty good job applying poison. And like I was saying, guys, you can get so much darn utility from those skinks. It's pretty amazing. So the silver helms are pretty much out of the picture. You can see my opponent is trying to get these dragon princes up and around, but he doesn't have too many great targets. You can see my laser dinos are now teeing off in these Phoenix Guard again, and I do have the Krok'Ars nearby who can definitely probably hold their own against Dragon Princes. I wonder how that would go 1-to-1. I feel like the Krok'Ars would be really good because Dragon Princes don't have the best AP values, but Dragon Princes also do have heavy physical resist. So the Krok'Ars are going to be trying to intercept these guys. They got their beat sticks out, and they have some of the funnier attack animations in the game, but wow, what a nice little charge bonus. They're pretty quick, actually. So it looks like some of the Krok'Ars are actually able to catch these guys and are laying a bit of a smacking on some of these Dragon Princes in the back, so definitely can't complain about that. And I do pull back my Cold One Spear Riders now that I've kind of secured the situation against the Silver Helms. And you can see Tyrion is trying to catch the skinks, but they're in their natural environment, the aquatic environment. But Tyrion gets in there, but he's more of a duelist type character. He doesn't do a ton of work against like large density units like this. You can see I do have my laser dinos coming in to support, and Big Daddy Krok'Ar's coming in. You can see how angry Grimlock looks, and Tyrion definitely has to be careful. So I do pop the swiftness of Itzel to give me that speed, and that puts the speed up to 102, which is insane. So he's able to catch Tyrion right there, gets a really nice armor piercing attack, and you can see Tyrion's gonna have to run. He's also poisoned. And on the same note, I do reposition my laser dino, so since my opponent was hiding most of his forces behind the hill here, I needed to get in the river and just get an angle where I could shoot. And you can see a nice shot right there. It actually goes through Tyrion and looks to hit those Phoenix Guards, so things are going pretty well for the little chameleon buddies right here. So now I'm advancing my main formation. I do have a battle line right here in the back. I wish I could have shown you guys this, but it looks like the Cold One Spear Riders, they did take some damage, but the Krok'Ars were able to just kind of beat down these Dragon Princes, and man, Krok'Ars are such a cool looking unit. I mean, I think in some of the old world matchups, they'll be a little bit better, like against Chaos. I think they'll be really solid. But you really need to avoid factions that have armor-piercing missile attacks, but Isles don't really have that. I mean, they have the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, but I honestly think these things kind of suck. And the Krok'Ars are relatively safe in this matchup. So, yeah, and as you can see, they perform pretty well against the Dragon Princes. So it looks like we were able to shatter those guys. Yeah, they're shattered off the battlefield, only 6 models, and these Silver Helms are pretty much a non-threat. I don't have too many missile units that are very vulnerable. I mean, even if those Dragon Princes did catch the Skinks, at this point, the Skinks might be able to beat them. So I think I actually did get a hand of the gods. Oh no, I shoot it right there, and look at it. It just hammers Tyrion. It just puts him down. Just massive damage. So Krok'Ar definitely just cackling over there, doing a pretty good job. And now that my opponent has overextended with the Phoenixes, I was trying to like just drag him out. Now I can slip these little skinks through the river, take advantage of their high movement speed, and just run past his defenses, because he was turtling very hard, so I was just waiting for an opportunity to get in there. So you can see that Tyrion right now is having to flee through the river, definitely not happy about that. And it looks like there is a Comet of Cassandora coming down, so look how much damage it does. So, oh no, but I think my opponent's going to dodge it. Oh man, what a bummer. So yeah, I did a little bit of damage, but if that had made solid impact, it would have just broken those guys. But this is like the perfect hard counter to Lothran Seaguard. They perform very well against, kind of a single target, large entities, or, lords or cav. But against skinks, they're going to take forever because they do have relatively low weapon strength without their bonus, and their melee attack is quite low as well. So right now I'm fanning out my skinks in 3 directions. I'm like, he has one group of infantry and some spears, so let's make it really difficult. So I run this skink back here, and these ones are going to get in here and just shut down his artillery. So man, the skink cohorts are such a cool unit. I mean, they have really, really good speed. I mean, they are poison. What's poisoning them right now? Who the heck on the Heilfroster is applying poison? Must be my chameleon skinks with some friendly fire. So the Krok'Ars are now making their way across the river. You can see Krok'Ar is just going to be laying the smackdown on this Lore Master of Hoeth, which is pretty much my opponent's last bastion of support right here. You can see he's trying to get away, but Grimlock is not going to have any of that stuff. So yeah, Lore Master of Hoeths are definitely pretty good. I think they're one of the better casters available. I mean, Earthblood, Spirit Leash, all of those abilities are very, very competitive. So the skinks have gotten to the high ground, and you can see I was just kind of kiting around his Sword Masters of Hoeth. So that's so much time being wasted, and in the meantime, he does have some spears kind of holding me off, but his archers are very obstructed. You can see these Lothran Seaguard right here, definitely not having a good time against these skinks, who are just kind of swarming them with just sheer density of numbers. So I think Tyrion is alive somewhere. I don't think he had the Heart of Averlorn, so he has no like heavy healing. And it looks like Tyrion did come back to, give one last fight here, but just with all these big Krok'Ars just laying a smackdown on him, and I love their attack. They just swing their weapons so slowly, but when they do hit, it feels so impactful. So Krok'Ar with his Hand of the Gods up here, I really wanted to get like another headshot with it. but unfortunately it was still on cooldown for quite some time. You can see Tyrion is actually is he not immune to psychology? I feel like he definitely should be. I mean, he seems like one of those like elite warrior types that wouldn't be afraid, but looks like he's terror-routed by the mighty Grimlock. So I do send my Skink Chief to kind of chase him down, potentially keep him off the battlefield, but it looks like the terror rod actually wore off, so now the Skink Chief is going to be in a little bit of trouble. Up in the high ground, you can see my Revivification Crystal supporting some of these guys, and that's what I love so much about the dinos. They have so many like dual-purpose units, but you know, in Total War Warhammer 1, a lot of units that were like kind of hybrid, like the Sisters of Thorn, were one of those units that are really tough to make work. But what's really cool about the dino roster is their dual units, like the ones that have multiple purposes, like the Healing Crystal and the Laser Lizard and all that stuff, are actually really good. So it's definitely a very fun faction to play. So the dino up here, they should be able to kind of rout off these spearmen. You can see the Swordmasters of Hoeth. I'm just tying them down with some Chameleon Skinks. I mean, they're probably not even going to lose one model against these Skinks, but at the very least, they're not really performing. But now the big deities are coming in to avenge their little Skinks, and hopefully we'll get to see a few beatings in the last 6 seconds of the game. So yeah, you can see they're just being sent flying, and the Kroxigors are basically a hard counter against the Swordmasters of Hoeth. So yeah, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that dino game. We were able to crack his Helms Deep up there on the hill. It was definitely a pretty tight little formation, but I really just don't like these Eagle Claw bolt throwers. I feel like they're so inefficient. Like I've maybe had like 1 or 2 games where I've had some decent success with them. I mean, they did okay at kind of poking down my laser dino and were able to kind of fend it off, but you know, I don't know. I'm just not a fan. If you guys have had any, you know, successful experiences with those things, I'd definitely like to hear about it. But I really like this build with the dinos. It's one of the builds from my guide that I'm working on, and it's coming along, guys. Don't worry. I'm just trying to make it nice and funny for you guys and in-depth as well. So there's a lot going into it. But yeah, this is one of the builds. You use the Skanks, you skirmish with these guys, you kind of force them out of their holes with the Bastiladons, and then once you're able to isolate some of the more elite infantry, you just take them out with the Kroxigors. So yeah, it was definitely fun. So for my opponent's build, I'm not a huge fan of Swordmasters of Hoeth. I feel like you can get away with just using like White Lions in this matchup because the Swordmasters are so expensive and they just take so much damage from the laser dinos that it's just like, it often backfires on you. I really like the Lothran Sea Guard, and you know, the Silver Helms as well as the Dragon Princes are fine. Dragon Princes are good. I don't know about how I feel about Silver Helms because they just get so heavily outclassed by the Cold One Spear Riders with their anti-large armor piercing. But I mean, having mobility, and Silver Helms do quite a bit of shock damage when they charge in. So if they ride down Skinks or they go after Saurus Warriors, they can do some substantial damage for sure. So Tyrion's not a bad choice. I like Teclis in this matchup as well, but Tyrion with his Sunfang can really roast the front line of the dinos. But with my Skirmisher build, it was a little bit less effective. I do like the Loremaster of Hoeth for my opponent. Definitely a good choice there. And yeah, it's kind of my evaluation of things. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that game. And guys, I got a lot more content coming soon. Have an excellent night, guys.